This isn't just a political drama anymore. This is basically becoming a serious warning sign inside Washington. So when people elect to run, Congress stop showing up, right? Stop following their own leadership, even start blocking their own party's agenda. Something much bigger is happening right now. And according to this report, some Republicans are now absolutely privately calling it the zombie Congress. That's crazy. Think about that for a moment. A zombie doesn't move with a purpose. A zombie simply wanders around without any direction at all. And now that term is being used by the lawmakers themselves. If members of Congress are saying this about their own party, then maybe America should pay attention, absolutely, because this isn't criticisms coming from Democrats. This is concern coming from Republicans themselves inside their own party. So what is really going on? Let me break this down in a clear way so you can understand simple and clear. And don't forget to subscribe and stay up to date. So right now, Republicans control the House of Representatives, but only very small majority. That means almost every single Republican vote matters a lot. If just a few members don't show up, if they vote against their own leadership, important bills can absolutely fail. Normally, when a political party controls a Congress, people expect the party to move its agenda forward. But according to this report, Republicans leaders are absolutely becoming increasingly worried about some of their own members have simply lost motivation for this. Some lawmakers are retiring totally. Some already lost elections, no confidence. Some are running for different offices now. Others are frustrated with the leadership, what they're facing. Because of that, many members no longer feel the same pressure to support every Republican proposal. Now, think about that, like your own workplace. If someone already knows they are leaving the company in a few months, they probably don't feel the same pressure to impress the boss anymore. Does that make sense? Now, this is exactly the situation Republican leaders are now worried about. And that's why some lawmakers are privately calling this as a zombie Congress. Look where America reached. Not because people are literally doing something wrong or nothing, because they fear Congress is slowly losing its ability to function as one united team. Now, things became even more chaotic. One of the biggest examples happened during a procedural vote connected to the SAVE Act, a bill focused on voters' identification requirements. But normally, procedural votes are expected to pass without much drama. But this time, more than a dozen of Republicans joined together to block their own leadership. What's really happening with this? That completely stopped the agenda. House Speaker Mike Johnson has no choice but to cancel the week's schedule and actually send lawmakers home before the 4th of July holiday. Just imagine that. Congress literally stopped working because members of their same political party could not agree with each other. What a chaotic moment. That's not something most people expect to see this. That's why this story has become so important after the 4th of July. Now, another issue is attendance. Several Republican lawmakers have recently missed important votes. Some because of illness, okay, I get it. Others of personal reasons. One member was away from Congress for several months before returning back to the office. Normally, that wouldn't be front page news, but it became now. But when your majority is only a few seats, every absence matters a lot. One missing vote can completely change the outcome of major legislation. That's why Republican leaders have reportedly been holding closed doors meeting, reminding members to simply show up. Think about that, how unusual that sounds. Leadership isn't just trying to convince people how to vote. They're basically trying to make sure enough people actually walk into the building and show up. That alone shows how fragile the situation has become right now in 2026. Then there's another problem here. Several Republican lawmakers are becoming more independent, right? Instead of automatically supporting the leadership, basically they're increasingly willing to vote based on their own opinions. Supporters might call that as a courage, but critics, on the other hand, they might call it as a rebellion. Now, it depends on how you look at the situation, but one thing is very certain. It makes passing legislation much harder and harder, not easier. Now, let's talk about the White House. According to the several lawmakers quoted in the report, some Republicans believe the White House has focused heavily on President Donald Trump's personal priorities instead of keeping the entire Republican Party united together. Another chaotic thing. Some members reportedly feel administration has focused more on what President Donald Trump wants rather than finding ways to keep every Republican working together. But that's only one side of the story. The White House strongly disagrees this. a White House spokeswoman responded by saying the administration continues working closely with Republican leaders and lawmakers remain focused on delivering the agenda American elected President Donald Trump to carry out. So there are clearly different opinions inside the party itself, as you can understand with this explanation, and that's what makes the situation even more interesting. So the disagreements are no longer just between Republicans and Democrats. It's not about that. Many of the disagreements are happening inside the Republican Party itself, between themselves. So the basic question, why should ordinary Americans care about this, right? Because Congress isn't just about another office or a building. No, Congress decides taxes, government spendings, immigration laws, as we all know that, defense spending totally, border security, which is one of the most important things for America, healthcare funding for all the Americans, and whether the government continues operating without major disruptions. If lawmakers cannot agree, legislation slows down. Sometimes it stops completely, and that can cause a more chaotic moment in America. And reports also point out that Congress still needs to pass the major government funding bill later this year to avoid another government shutdown. With such a narrow majority, even a few Republicans refusing to cooperate could make passing those bills much more difficult, and normal Americans, they will suffer. One Republican lawmaker admitted the situation has become so frustrating that he compared it to shooting ourselves in the foot. That's not criticisms from the political opponent. That's frustration coming from inside the Republican Party itself. Now, here's something important to remember. Pay attention to this. Political disagreements happen in every democracy, and that's normal. Both Republicans and Democrats regularly disagree with members of their own parties. That isn't unusual. What makes this story different is that multiple Republican lawmakers are openly expressing concern that internal division could make it much harder to pass the party's own agenda. Whether those concerns grow or not, or disappears over the next several months, remain to be seen totally. But right now, in this moment, Republican leadership clearly believes this is becoming an absolute serious issue. So where does this go from here? There are really only two possibilities. The first possibility is Republican leaders manage to reunite the party, which I don't think so. Members being showing up constantly. Internal disagreements calm down, which we are not seeing that. Major legislation starts moving again to the normal position, and Republicans enter the midterm elections looking more united. So the second possibility is very different and opposite. The disagreements continues, which is happening right now. Attendance problem remain, which is happening right now. More lawmakers vote independently. Wow, everything is happening right now. Important bills keep failing. Critics continue using phrases like zombie Congress to describe what's really happening inside their own party. Nobody knows which path Congress will take. But one thing is becoming absolutely increasingly crystal and clear. When members of the governing party begin publicly warning about attendance, motivation, discipline, or probably internal unity, it usually means deeper political tensions are developing beneath the surface. So the biggest question isn't whether Democrats or Republicans are winning today's political battle. The biggest question is whether the Congress can still function effectively when the governing majority is struggling to stay united. Because winning an election is one thing. Governing successfully after the election is something else completely different. And that's the most important. And according to this report, that's exactly the challenge Republicans are facing right now. Whether they solve it quickly or whether they grow into a much larger political crisis is something America will be watching very closely over months ahead from now on. So let me know in the comments below, what do you think where America is heading and all this chaotic thing, what's really happening? Are we heading to the right direction or normal Americans are about to suffer? Thank you. See you in the next video. Don't forget to subscribe and stay up to date. Thank you for supporting the channel.